David, you there? David? Oh. David, if you're there, we can't hear you. Are you muted? Okay, we'll come back to David. Who's the next one? Larry Higgs is up next. Larry, you there? This is perfect. David Meyer there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, David, how are you? We're one of three. You're the first one to get through here.
I'm very proud to be the first. Just so I know, because I can't see you all, who is on the other end right now?
Here's Kevin O'Toole and Rick Cotton's here, the two of us.
All right, so I got a question for Kevin, I guess, and maybe for both of you. Kevin, you remarked upon Rick's performance and the Port Authority's performance as one of the reasons for the Port Authority's low COVID-19 death count, and I'm wondering, two things, whether that is in reference to other agencies such as the MTA, and second, what the Port Authority specifically did in order to keep that number low.
So, look, I'm not referring to other facilities. I can just tell you that, when we look at our numbers here and in terms of the quarantine and those people who have gotten sick and those people who have gotten ill, I believe as the chair of the board here, that it was the swift and decisive action taken by Rick senior staff to take immediate steps to transition folks to home, have certain protocols, safety protocols, cleansing protocols, work protocols in place that I think headed off what could have been some pretty tragic numbers. And Rick may want to go into detail specifically what steps he has taken, but that's been the consensus of the Board of Commissioners.
Well, David, I might just jump in quickly. This is a tribute to fast action in putting in protective measures and to discipline, which is to not only have those measures be put into place, but adopted and implemented at all levels of the organization. So, just to give you a couple of examples, the police department put in totally 100% revised processes at every level of their organization to move quickly to safe and protective measures. So musters were eliminated. Any officer who was on duty at a facility would arrive under the new protocols in uniform, not have to go to a locker room, not congregate in a large number, but go directly to his or her post and directly one-on-one with social distancing relieve the officer that was then on duty. Pay tribute to the PBA. I mentioned the union leaders just as an example. The PBA moved quickly to provide foggers, disinfectant foggers for vehicles. That was implemented very quickly. The remote work, having close to 3,000 employees working remotely. In terms of operating personnel who continue to come into work, devising very quickly social distancing, the wearing of masks, all of those procedures, they continue, but it is those practices being put in early and the employees across the organization following them religiously, which we believe drove down the number of employees on quarantine and which held low the number of positive tests for employees.
Okay, next question is from Dan. Hey, Dan, are you there? Rivoli?
Yes. Hello?
Hey, Dan, it's Kevin and Rick. How you doing?
Good. Questions. why did Port Authority leave the three major New York City airports open? And what can you tell me about the capital program? What would have to be cut? What goes? How do you extract savings you need on that?
Well, so Dan, this is Rick. The notion of closing one of the three major airports in the New York region never made any sense to us. The hurdles are regulatory in terms of the fact that we cannot on our own close a major airport. I'm not aware of any major airport in the country that shut down. These three airports serve very different areas, and we felt a commitment to essential workers and to medical and health supplies coming in through our airports. Air cargo has been vital. Air cargo has continued at a very vigorous level. Travel by essential workers and essential healthcare workers has continued. We did not go to the FAA and seek the permission we would need. We would not. We simply would not do that. What we did instead was to keep the airports operating, to reduce expenses. Services were at the airports were obviously cut back, given the 97% reduction in passengers. Operating areas, meaning concourses, terminals, portions were closed. Some concourses were entirely closed. Some terminals were entirely closed. Areas were fenced fenced off. So there was we put as many cost reductions as we possibly could in place, but we did not believe it was a responsible course of action to the region to actually close one of the three major airports, obviously in New York, but one of the major airports in the country.
As to your question about capital, I think it's too premature to venture as to what programs would have to be extended, cut, abridged. We're looking at all kinds of options, and we'll have to see how this thing plays out in terms of revenues coming in and support from the feds. Okay, next question, Clayton.
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
Clayton, is that you? It's Kevin and Rick. How you doing?
Hey, you guys. I get a couple questions here, so bear with me. First, a group of labor unions representing PATH workers today sent a statement out griping about a change in Port Authority policy that does not allow them to get additional sick days if they fall ill from COVID. From what I understand, in the height of the pandemic, they were given additional sick days. So could you just address that first before I go into my second one?
I'm not aware of any change, but we'll certainly look into it and get back to
you. Yeah. Okay. And then I wanted to ask you about the plan floated by the TSA to do wide-scale temperature checks at the airports for incoming passengers as things start to reopen. Where have you guys been in any conversations with the federal government about that? Do you have any indication as to what that would look like, and whether it would be effective to contain the spread of the virus in the region?
Well, our aviation department has been in close touch with federal partners at the airport, both the TSA and CBP. Our airports are prepared to support any screening or any changes in screening that the TSA and CBP adopt. We are, in terms of the operation of all of our facilities, looking at all potential safety procedures. Certainly temperature checks are one of those. We have not arrived at decisions at this point, but what I would say to you specifically with the TSA discussion is many elements of the airport communities have been consulting with TSA because all of us will be working together to assure that the safety protocols at the airports are at the highest level possible.
Thanks, Clay. We're going to move on to, is it Becky Strom?
Yeah. Yep.
Hey, Becky, Kevin and Rick,
Hi.
how you doing?
Good afternoon. The last question was basically my question, but if I could let you continue to elaborate, are there other, besides temperature checks, are there other structural, procedural, technological changes that you expect in the long term or permanent at the airports following this crisis and as you start to build up capacity of passengers?
Well, our expectation and our plan is that there will be widespread changes in procedures and protocols to assure that there is, first of all, safe social distancing in terms of any lines or any crowds that form. So we are looking at every place where there is a possibility of inability to maintain social distancing. Obviously, looking at disinfecting and cleaning procedures so that we wind up with frequently touched surfaces receiving thorough and frequent disinfecting and cleansing. One of the possibilities, there are new technologies, ultraviolet light we are looking at very closely. We're looking at a number of different fogging technologies in terms of the ability to clean areas, to clean restrooms. We haven't arrived at decisions, but we are trying to be sure that any best practice that exists in this country or abroad, that we're giving a very close look at with a thumb on the scale to being best in class in terms of safety procedure.
Thanks, Becky. We'll move to Larry Higgs. Larry? Hey, Larry?
Oh,
Larry's not there? Larry, you there? We'll get back to Larry. How about Colleen Wilson? Colleen?
Here, can you hear me?
Hey, Colleen. Yes, Kevin and Rick. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. My question was just, it's a little bit of what you already talked about, but can you just expand on these working groups that Rick Cotton kind of went into, and what the outcomes of those working groups are going to be? Are you going to publicly put up reports about their findings and their best practices and that sort of thing?
Well, so those working groups are hard at work. I have reviewed some, maybe I'm through about half of them at this point. I anticipate that there will be continued analysis and continued evaluation of the multiple options that each is looking at. As I said, there's a working group for each of our operating departments, and those analyses are literally facility by facility, simply because some options are workable at one facility but not at another. And we then have commissioned what is cross-cutting work so that we're sure that in terms of safety and health, in terms of new technologies, as you're referencing, in terms of security processes, that we have evaluated all potential opportunities to be sure that we are operating our facility safely. But we're midstream in this. We are conscious of the timeline in terms of being in position as downstate New York and northern New Jersey do start to relax restrictions. But at this point, we haven't reached final decision.
Thanks, Colleen. Can we go back to Larry Higgs, see if he's around?
Sure.
Hey, Larry, you there? Larry?
Can you hear me?
Hey, Larry, we can barely hear you. How you doing, Larry? It's Kevin and Rick.
Oh, hi, how you doing?
Good.
Actually, this is a forward-looking question. it has to do with what do you see as the effect of commuters and travelers working from home on ridership once we start to get back to normal?
Restriction.
I mean, look, from a global, and Rick can probably talk more granular, I think it's going to take a bit for them to get back into the routine. My guess is you'll see folks probably towards the end of summer or so start to climb back. I think obviously the question of the vaccine comes into play. I think once that, and I don't speak as a scientist, I think once that occurs, you'll see more full confidence of people returning back to their quote normal lives.
I think what I would add to that, Larry, is there are one could theorize in terms of potential shifts in a variety of areas. So remote work will certainly, in my view, be a significant element of the landscape for the next period of time, really until a vaccine is implemented. Now, there may be a modal shift. I tend to not like that word, but the question of how many individuals will continue to use mass transit, how many individuals will move to cars. We need a little bit more information. In terms of being able to maintain social distance on mass transit, there are going to have to be very significant changes. Work hours, we have to work with the business community. Work hours are going to have to be staggered. Mass transit systems are going to have to come up with procedures which reduce crowding on station platforms, reduce crowding in terms of in the rail cars. We're trying to think as to exactly how to do that. Crowd counting technology probably becomes an element of that. Some degree of metering in terms of riders coming into the system, but those are all elements which we're focused on. But some push in one direction in terms of some of our facilities, some push in the other direction. And I think the other thing to say is we are right now, in terms of the Port District, downstate New York and northern New Jersey, we are at the bottom of the shaft. This is we are at the most intense point, about to start coming out in terms of restriction. But when you're down at the bottom of the shaft, it's hard to see the light. And so we want to understand what are the changes that are happening. It involves consultation with multiple, both entities, the business community, the labor community, and that's what we're in of. And we don't have firm judgments other than to know the lodestar by which we have to steer is put ourselves in a position where our facilities are enabling people to maintain social distance, avoid crowd, but continue to provide the necessary service.
Thanks, Larry. I'm going to move to Nora. And Nora, is that you? Nora?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think.
Okay. Oh. Okay, those are all the questions. Okay, thank you all. Appreciate it.